Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace. I hadn't done a Latin jazz piece in quite a while, and I think it'd be very, very instrumental for me to introduce you to tonight's musician who I'm going to profile. Drummer, composer, bandleader, educator, and airline pilot, Marlon Simon is now making a reintroduction not only to the New York jazz scene, but the music world internationally. This gentleman hails from Venezuela, and for the last 30 years, this gentleman has played with some very important stalwarts in the Latin jazz community, ranging from the great Jerry Gonzalez to the great Hilton Reeves, just to name the many endless few. Now, this gentleman has also been very, very steeped in the rich jazz tradition here in New York City. But he's also a commercial pilot, which we'll talk about later on in our interview. Tonight you're going to see highlights of his official New York record release of On Different Paths, live at Zinc here in New York City. And we had a chance to sit down and talk about how important this record was to him, how being a Guggenheim recipient is allowing him to premiere as well as tour and play the new music. So sit back, relax, and enjoy highlights of Mr. Marlon Simon performing music of his brand new record, On Different Paths, live at Zinc, here on the Pace Report, here in New York City. Congratulations on this brand new record. It took a while for you to put this record together, and also there's a lot of things coming together. It's the first time you played in New York in about maybe what, 6-7 years?
At least. When you say the album took so long, you refer the amount of time that took from my last album to this one.
Yes.
Okay. There is a period there that not many people know, because it was more like a personal thing that I had, and I had to leave the country for 6 years. I went back to Venezuela for 6 years, and I was completely away of the music. Later on, I'm a pilot also. I fly small planes. So later on, I came back to the US. The reason I left was a very, very disastrous divorce that I had in New Jersey, and I had to leave. So now that I was back 6 years later, they offered me a gig flying in El Paso, Texas. And they offered me $150,000 a year. U.S. Custom Patrol with a badge.
That's a lot of money down there.
For 5 years contract. Brian, I thought about it, and I thought about my other option, music. I went for the music. I didn't take that because I think when you take those types of jobs, they're gonna own your life. And I didn't want that at this stage of my life. So I came back. I went to Houston to a friend of mine that invited me there to do some job in a church. And then I applied for the Guggenheim Foundation Fellowship. And I presented what I had done in the previous years that I was here. That was about 25 years. Presented my albums, my compositions, my awards that I had, everything. And lucky me, I got the grant, I got the fellowship. Actually, when they called me, when they sent me the email, I thought it was a mistake that they were making, because I said, nah, I'm gonna apply. My brother asked me to apply, and people asked me to apply. I said, I don't have a shot at this. It's very competitive. You're talking about 3,600 applications between the United States and Canada. And from the 3,600, they get 400 on different fields: doctors, research, and scientific, poetry, literature. Music composition is 14 people. So okay, I was lucky to get that. And the proposal that I did for the album was to blend classical elements with jazz music and Afro-Caribbean rhythms. Something that I never have done in the past. The elements of classical music will be utilizing an instrumentation that is only used on classical music, such as the bassoon and the French horn. And they like the idea. And once they approved me with that grant, I have to deliver this project. And it took me like a year to write all the music.
But you were already hearing the music anyway.
Yeah, sure. I was hearing what I wanted to hear, and I was hearing things, but I wanted to evolve also in reference to the previous albums. I said, I'm not going to do the traditional Latin jazz that I've done in the past. I wanted to evolve a little bit as a composer, and I worked hard on that one, on that album, to create a story on each composition that will tell you a story.
And also another thing about this project, you're on Truth Evolution Records, and Zakai and Lucas Curtis, they've been very, very hands-on in keeping the rich tradition of Latin music out there. Tell me your relationship with those brothers.
Well, look, when I had the album ready, that I mixed and mastered, I started searching for companies, because a lot of people, they put it out on their own, but there is so many things that you have to do after you put the album out. I didn't have the time because I wanted to be on my instrument and compose more. And it's a lot of ends that you cannot really do as a musician. At least I couldn't. So I started looking for other companies. I looked for Ubiquity, who put my Rumba La Patato album out. I talked to Jazz Heads, who put In Case You Missed It. And then I was talking really fast to Sakai. Believe it or not, I don't know them personally yet. I haven't met them personally. I said, Sakai, I want you to check this out. I said, you sure you want to put that with us? Because I think you can, you have enough career to do it on your own, and you sure you need us? He said. I said, Sakai, check the record out, and then we'll see what can we do. No? Then he was very impressed with the record. He was very impressed. He said, man, it will be an honor if you put this record with us. And I look back at what they were doing, and they recorded Andy Gonzalez also before he passed.
Right.
I'm dedicating a song to Andy. I think I'm a product, in a way, of that period of the Four Apache Band and Hilton Ruiz. So I'm a product of that. And the deal they offer is the best deal that I could find. And I like the fact that it's owned by musicians and by Mr. Ted Curris, who is a splendid person.
Yes.
I look forward to meet him personally. Yeah, I'm glad I'm with them. I'm really glad I made that decision.
And they've been really hands-on with the music. I mean, their mentors have handed the baton to them in so many ways. And then too, Zukai and Kes, they both they have a passion for the music.
Mm-hmm.
They want the music to go forward, and I think it wasn't a surprise that this project was released through their label.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that at this stage of your career that Latin jazz, the music, has been represented well, or do you think that it still has a way to go as far as being presented to the masses?
Well, it's a difficult period, definitely, in the music industry. Sometimes I think that we belong to a generation that we cannot really connect with these new ones. But I believe in quality. I think Latin jazz has still a vast amount of space and time to grow. Definitely to grow. That gender. The Apaches, the Four Apache was an example of how to develop Latin jazz when they came out in the 70s and 80s. And they took it to another level. And I think that's the challenge. That's what they left for us. And we are responsible to evolve to the next level based on creativity and quality. Yes, I think we still have work to do, and I think there is still a huge audience that we can attract.
growing up in Venezuela, I guess there's a lot of musical styles that you grew up listening to. How did you get exposed to American jazz music, Black American music?
Excellent. Venezuela geographically is the first country north of South America. So, being the first country north, the country absorbed music from all the Caribbean islands, from the US. It's like a port of entry of many musical genders. So I grew up listening to all kind of Afro-Caribbean rhythms, salsa, merengue, cumbias. My father was a ballad singer with a guitar. And one day, I was never exposed to jazz at that time. I was like 23, 24. I was playing locally there. I was self-taught in Latin music. One day, a friend of mine brought a Betamax. You remember those videos of that time?
Yes.
And I had a VCR. I say, Marlon, I want you to listen to this. I want you to see this. I don't know where he got it, Brian. I don't remember if I asked him, "Where did you get that?" Somebody recorded it for him. And I put the Betamax, okay, let's watch this. I sat down with my brother Edward and my father. And it was a celebration birthday of Nancy Reagan at the White House. And they had Dizzy Gillespie, Chick Corea, Miroslav Beatles, Ray Haynes. Who was the trumpet player? Is very well known here in New York. I don't remember his name now, but I remember later. So I listened to it.
Was it Dizzy Gillespie?
No. Dizzy was there, and he had, at that time, he was his student, or he took him under the wing.
Terrence Blanchard?
No, the other one here in New York also.
Wynton Marsalis?
No. What's his name? He's Afro-American.
Arturo Sandoval?
No, Arturo no. Okay. He will come to me. He also plays very high notes.
Okay.
And he's very well known here. The name will come to me. But the point is that I'm looking at this and I didn't understand what was going on. Of course, I've never been exposed to that gender of music. So I'm listening, but I couldn't understand. I saw there was a lot of freedom on it, and that's what sparked on me to say, what is this? I really like to learn this. And with the support of my father, I came to the US. In 1987, Philadelphia, the University of the Arts. I took my first jazz lesson on drums when I was 27 years old.
But you had been playing timbales.
Timbales and all the Latin rhythms in Venezuela, self-taught. In the town that we grew up, me and my brothers, there were no music schools. It's a very small town. I'm talking of a town of 100,000 people. So we didn't have music schools. We learned on our own, listening. At that time I listened to Sonora Ponceña, Papoluca, Irakere, all those bands that were hitting at that time. But I never really went to music school formally until I was 27 years old. I took my first formal lesson. And I graduated at the New School 4 years later in 92. That's when I graduated. So, I don't know, if it wasn't for this guy that brought this Betamax tape, I don't know if I would be in America now.
Marlon, I have to ask you, when you moved to New York, do you recall the first jazz concerts that you saw or had seen and made an impact on you to become a musician here in New York?
In New York? Well, the first impact, to be honest, was in Philadelphia. Because I lived in Philly. And there was a club there called Odd Leaves, located on North Philadelphia, 3rd and Poplar. Very, very popular club among jazz musicians. I will go there every weekend to check out the musicians. I met and heard Mickey Rocker, met and heard and recorded with him Charles Fambo, Sid Simmons, Larry McCann, and those were the guys that I was involved for many years in Philly. Then I made a move to New York looking for, to advance musically. And the first concert that I saw in New York was probably, to be honest with you, it was probably Bobby Watson
Hmm.
at the Village Vanguard.
Oh, wow.
Why did I go there? Because my brother was already a piano player with them. And you know what impacted me the most besides the music? That I walk into the club and I see Bobby on alto, he was probably 40, 42 years old. Victor Lewis on drums, a big influence on me. He was probably 45. Esiet on bass, maybe 45 years old. Milton Mustafa on trumpet, maybe 40 years old. And to the left you see my brother Edward, 23 years old. So I say, wow, you know, for Bobby, and Bobby was, there were some critics about that. They asked him, what is that kid doing in there? And Bobby said that he brings something to the band that nobody else brings. And I was very impressed with that band, Horizon.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that band is, it touched me, emotionally, and really motivated me to keep studying jazz, and watching Victor Lewis so close. That was one of the first concerts that really motivated me to keep going in New York. It wasn't an easy life, I'm telling you, playing locally, living in Brooklyn, winter time, put the drums in the car, go to Manhattan, double park, come back home, no parking spot. My apartment was on the fourth floor. You gotta do 4 trips to take the drums upstairs at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's below zero, no parking. You gotta park 6 blocks away. You go to bed at 3 o'clock, and then at 7 you gotta get up to move your car because they're gonna clean the street. Otherwise they're gonna tow you. Mm-hmm. I did that for probably 5 to 6 years. It wasn't easy, Brian. It wasn't easy until I finally broke a little bit with Hilton Ruiz. Hilton was the first pianist who called me and asked me to join the band. After I played locally with a lot of people locally here, and then I toured with Hilton for 7 years. Hilton was on piano, Andy McLeod was on bass, sometimes Lyle Atkinson was on bass. And that was a very good school for me, playing jazz with those legends. They were very strict about the vocabulary. And I learned a lot in that part.
your percussion and drumming heroes? Who are the guys that you listen to? And also, are there any percussion or drummers that you sat down and got master classes from when you moved to New York?
The main guys that I listened when I went to school, we all would listen to the masters. Art Blakey, Tony Williams, all those guys that were the old school at that time. You will have to do it because they will ask you to do some transcriptions of their solos. So I listened to Art Blakey a lot and Tony. But I also listened to a second generation like Victor Lewis. That's the next generation, and I really loved the way Victor approached the music. So on the jazz side, I would say that Blakey, Tony, Victor. On the Latin side, I started listening a lot to the Cuban drummers that came here and absorbed the jazz vocabulary. And I think one of the only ones who did that was Ignacio Berroa, who played the last 15 years with Dizzy Gillespie.
Right.
He was the drummer for that. So I listened to Ignacio a lot, and there was a drummer here in New York that he carried the vast amount of information, Steve Berrios. He was with the Fort Apache. And I think he knew both vocabularies. I'm sure he knew both vocabularies very, very well. But Steve never got too close to me. I tried to, but he always kept a distance. I don't know, his personality was kind of that. And I called him for a lesson and he said, no, I don't give lessons. So I never took a lesson from them. I just followed them and listened to them and see what they were doing. And then I departed from there. I departed from what they were doing. I took a couple of lessons with Jose Luis Quintana, Changuito, in Cuba. I took 1 or 2 lessons in his house. And I didn't take any, I studied with Keith Copeland at the New School. He was my teacher. And those are the main guys that I really look at them as mentors, Keith Copeland, Berroa, Berrios, Victor Lewis.
Now, when you came to America, and I guess at that time, you had shifted from timbales to drums, but what was your take the first time you saw Tito Puente?
I saw Tito playing for the first time here at the Village Gate. You remember those nights?
I wasn't living in New York at the time, but the Village Gate was a very important venue here in New York City for jazz.
They had the Latin Meet Jazz nights. And I would come most of the weeks to check out, the Fort Apache. At that time was also Daniel Ponce was here. And I saw Puente there. He's an ensemble, and I met Mario Rivera, the tenor player. And yeah, I was very impressed with the quality and musicianship of those guys, because they would play at a volume that, wow. The previous band was so loud, I don't remember who was, and then when Puente came, everything went down. And you could see the musicianship, and Puente being an excellent composer, and he developed his own vocabulary on the timbales, It was exquisite, man. It was a joy to see him at the Village Vanguard. I saw him many times at the Vanguard.
Was it?
I'm sorry, at the Gate.
The Gate. Was there some kind of validation when you saw him as you were playing timbales growing up in your native Venezuela? When you came here, did you feel validated? The rudiments of what he had found and laid out here in America was the same thing that you were trying to do when you were trying to find your voice here in America?
Absolutely. Yeah, Puente had an influence on me as when I was young, because he was the guy. I wouldn't say he created the vocabulary of Latin jazz, but he was a main exponent of this, and his arrangements were so rich and so well done. And yeah, I follow him on the timbal a lot in Venezuela, what he was doing. But along with him, there was, the Machito Orchestra,
Yes.
the connection of Dizzy with Chano Pozo. That was the origins of that Latin jazz in New York. But besides that, Brian, besides that movement in the 40s and 50s of Machito, Puente, Faro, Chico Faro, besides that, what called my attention the most was the movement in the 70s of the first people who started to adapt jazz standards from Miles Davis, Coltrane, Monk, and that was the Fort Apache Band, and Hilton Lewis. To me, they were the creators of that movement, purest of the Monk, Miles, Coltrane, put it into Latin jazz rhythms.
You played with the Fort Apache Band.
I did a couple of gigs with them, yeah, but Steve was busy, and I did a couple of weeks with the Apache, and there is a very interesting story about that. I used to follow them a lot to their gigs, and I always was trying, to absorb what they were doing. It's a lot of information on what they were doing. And I always, I had this dream. Well, maybe one day I played with Jerry. Jerry was like a mentor to me, and Andy also. They helped me a lot in my first years in New York. And one night I saw an announcement in a magazine. Jerry Gonzalez and the Fort Apache Band special guest, Jose Luis Quintana Changuito on timbal, which is a master timbalero, Changuito. I said, wow, I gotta go and see this. I was living in Jersey at that time. It was at the 5 Spot. You remember that place?
Yes.
The 5 Spot. I said, I gotta go. So I called the club, buy my ticket. How much are the ticket? Sold out. Cannot get in, sold out. I said, wow. So I start making calls. Somebody told me, well, the guy who is organizing this they gave me the name, I don't remember. He was the master ceremony. I called him. I said, listen, this Marlon Simon, I'm trying to get here to see this. Say, Marlon is completely full. I cannot get you in. I gave up. I hung up. I said, well, I'm not going to see those masters tonight. An hour later, I get a call from the same guy who was putting that together. And he said, Marlon, I think I have a way to get you in. We need a drum set. We don't have a drum set. We need a drum set. If you bring your drum set, I get you in. He said, what time you want me there? He said, be here at 7. I cleaned my drum set, polished them. I was there at 6. Changuito's supposed to play drum set. The show was at 8 o'clock. I sit there, I put the drum set, I set it up, and I sit on my first line there just waiting. The club was empty at that moment. And I'm just waiting there, and people start to come. It's 8 o'clock. I see everybody, Changuito, John Stubblefield, Joe Ford. Andy wasn't there. It was Carlitos. Carlitos Enrique was on bass. He was only like 16 years old. Larry Willis was there. But Jerry wasn't there yet. He was late. It was like 8:30, 9 o'clock. And the place is packed. And suddenly I feel somebody knock on my shoulder, pook, pook, pook. It was Jerry. I say, hey, Jerry, what's up, man? I say, you playing drums tonight. Changuito cannot really do the swing. So you playing drums tonight, Changuito. I mean, but wait a minute, what are we going to play? And he turned around and he went to the dressing room. Man, I started to sweat at that point. Thank God I've been following this band for over a year. And I more or less knew the repertoire. And that was my first gig with the Apaches. Unannounced. They told me the same night, no rehearsal, nothing. And there is a videotape of that on
Really?
YouTube. Yes, it was a great night for me, you know. I remember that I walked out of there at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I called my father in Venezuela. Hey, I played with Jerry and Changuito. You know, that was my first gig with them. And then I did like probably 5 or 6 more gigs because that was the chair of Steve. That's how I got in touch with the Apaches.
You know, Jerry's been gone almost, what, almost,
Was
almost
probably
12, 15 years?
probably 10 to 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does he mean to you now? What does he mean to Latin jazz music?
I miss Jerry, man. I miss Jerry and Andy. I kept in touch with them. I used to hang with Andy in his apartment, you know, watching videos and learning about everything. I think it was the biggest loss in the Latin jazz from New York. You know, the New York, that gender that I told you that was developed in New York. That's the biggest loss, I believe, in history. Jerry and Andy. Yeah, it's a big loss, and we miss them. You know, I miss them a lot. Man. Yeah, they died young, man. Andy died from diabetes.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Jerry died in an accident with the fire in the building.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was crazy. That was crazy. I want to talk about your brother.
Uh-huh.
They say the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. You're older.
I'm the oldest of my two next brothers. Yeah.
Okay. Did you know that your brother had a significant gift and talent with piano?
Yes, since an early age. Since he was 14, I could see he got an amount of natural talent. You know, I was listening to a podcast a couple of days ago where they say natural talent doesn't exist. Nobody's naturally gifted. I'm completely against that.
I am too.
I think there is people who are gifted and are born with a talent, and Edward is one of them. My brother Edward. He an amazing musician. What he hears, the things that he hears and the things that he plays, is all about music. It's not about chops and playing 1,000 notes in a minute. He can care less about that. It's about music. Everything you hear coming out of him is music. Edward is talented from the moment he was born. He brings an amount of talent. And then, of course, 10 years with Bobby Watson, 7 years with Derek Blanchard.
Yeah.
So you go to a level now that is, you know, it's completely gone.
Right.
And my younger brother Michael he's the youngest, he's a trumpet player. He's an amazing composer. Also, he writes very, very good. I think I'm the least talented.
I wouldn't say that, man. I wouldn't say that. I mean, the music.
To work hard,
man. Listen, the music that you presented at Zinc showcases one. First of all, what really threw me for a loop was the piano player. He's incredible. But then, how the musicians had to look to you. You're the leader, and you are keeping this going. And a band leader, a lot of people think it's easy running a band and composing music. It's not. Tell everybody about the pros and cons of leading your own band and also composing, because not everybody can interpret the music the way you hear it and see it and write it.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna tell you why is the main reason I founded the Nagual Spirits in 1995. I was playing with Hilton at that time. And a lot of things that I tried to do with Hilton, he will tell me, no, don't play that. No, don't play that. Play that here. Stay inside the gig. Same thing happened with the Apache. I was playing with Andy one time, and I was playing something on the 6/8, and I say, no, backbeat. Don't play the backbeat. No. They were purists. And I was listening to all the rhythms in my head. And I say, the only way I'm going to get these rhythms out of me is do my own band. Because for a leader, you have to do the work for the leader.
Right.
You know, you have to give him what they want. But I couldn't do what I want. And I wanted to do something rhythmically different and see how the harmonies will work together with the rhythm. The rhythm change in a section, the harmony also change in that section.
Right.
To create the different things that I hear. That was the main cause of founding the Nagual Spirits. That's one of the pros. I can write the rhythms I want. I can write the structural composition that I want. One of the cons that it works against you is that it's a lot of responsibility and pressure. A lot. The compositions has to be at a certain level. The musicians have to be into it also. They gotta be into that, you know. This last record that I wrote is very demanding on the horns. Very demanding.
Because there's an orchestral
Yes.
interpretation to this.
Orchestral and rhythmically, it has his thing. And Alex and Peter are into it. Thank God they're into, because not anybody will, spend the time to do that. The piano that you're referring to is Silvano Monasterios. He's from Caracas with a vast experience in commercial music, Latin music, and jazz. So you can count probably with two hands the people who can do this type of music, because you have to be knowledgeable of both sides.
Right.
The Latin side and the jazz side. And this demanding because both genders are very demanding.
Now that you are, coming back to New York and getting back on the music scene, are you really, really seriously thinking about stepping back into this full time?
Well, the guys wants me to come back. I mean, the guys from the band say, "Hey, you should move up here. You should move up here." And I miss New York and I miss Philly, because I end up in Texas for different circumstances. The only thing that, Brian, I have a little problem is, as I told you, the winter time. I have a problem, of imbalance in my brain with the lack of light. So that's the only thing that makes me think sometimes, wow. But I'm considering it. I'm considering coming back. Maybe during the winter I can get a place in the south and come back here for the rest of the year when the weather is better, because I miss the music from New York and the people, from New York and Philadelphia. I think those are the two main cities in the coast that have the crown in jazz and Latin music.
New York City.
Yeah.
New York, New Orleans,
and
Philly, yeah, and even LA to a certain extent. It's just New York has always been the archbishop of this music.
Yeah, LA is another style, that is great to make, but I'm very, very touched by the New York style of playing Latin and jazz.
Two more quick questions.
Sure.
Roberta
Mm-hmm.
told me you're a pilot. Now, I know a couple of musicians that are pilots.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. Tom Brown, trumpeter,
Uh-huh.
and Aaron Deal now. He
Mhm.
flies now. Flying is a discipline within another discipline because you're in the air, navigation. How did you become a pilot, and how has flying affected your drum style?
There is a relation, and you know, it's interesting that you say that. I know a couple of pilots that are musicians. I don't know what the connection is there, but I know two or three pilots that are heavily into music and are musicians. Uh, like you say, it's two different disciplines. The pilot job is very strict. You have to fulfill a certain amount of rules and stay on top of all the updates that they have. It's a very, very stressful job to fly. And here in America, you have to follow a lot of rules. Not in Venezuela. In Venezuela, we fly like without any rules. You know, here you have to follow certain rules. You know, flying. I remember when I was younger, the planes called my attention, and I told my father about it. And he took me to Florida, to Vero Beach in 1979 to study aviation. That's what I obtained in my commercial pilot license. And I remember that when I used to fly in Venezuela, when I was younger, around 25, 26, I was already flying and playing as a side man, you know, on the side. I used to take off and look down to the ground and I say, in a way, all my problems is, are down there, not here with me. I felt like I disconnect, you know, from the whole society.
Right.
And I like that feeling. I love that feeling. Flying at night in the middle of the ocean, you know, and I say, all those troubles are there. Here, there are no problems. So I feel more comfortable in the air than down there. How it affected my drumming? I thought about a lot of rhythms being in the air. I put that automatic pilot and you have to fly for 2, 3 hours. And I start thinking about melodies in the air and looking down and what kind of melodies comes to my head when I'm 50,000 feet above ground level. And somehow, I cannot tell you exactly how, but yes, there is an influence on my flying hours with the way I play drums and I write music. And I would like to call that, like I say in other interviews, I think that's part of the Nagual,
Mm.
part of the that connection that you cannot explain sometimes. Because if I ask you, why do you like certain melody? You can tell me all the reasoning. Oh, because it have this chord progression. Oh, because the melody develops in certain ways, in half steps, or this is that. All that is learned knowledge. All that is learned in the schools, in the university. All that is your knowledge, your conditioning. For me, Nagual is outside that. Inside this circle is your knowledge, your education, your condition, your religion, your values, your belief systems. Outside the circle is Nagual. Now, you don't get to Nagual through
Right.
your thoughts.
Right.
No. That's what I call Nagual. You don't explain that with words. Live it and feel it.
Marlon Simon, what does Black American music mean to you?
It means, first, means suffering. I think Black American music is a product of suffering of the Afro American people, and that's why it touches my heart, because I have certain events in my life that I have to defeat. It means one of the, if not the highest level of artistry, and the Afro-American music to me is full of emotion, culture, and is the maximum, the highest expression of emotions that a human being can have as a vehicle to express. I think Afro-American music carries all that, but mainly carries a lot of suffering.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace. I'd like to personally thank the incomparable Marlon Simon for his time. Make sure you support his latest album on Different Paths, which is now available on Truth Revolution Records. You can order it on Amazon.com as well as Apple Music, and it's available on all major streaming platforms. For more information on Marlon's upcoming tour dates, as well as information about him, visit him online at marlonsimonmusic.com. I'd like to personally thank the staff and management at Zinc for their warm hospitality. Also, I'd like to personally thank Roberto Lawrence for arranging my time with the great Marlon Simon. As always, people, I can't stress this more than enough. Please like, share, and subscribe to my videos and leave comments. As well as, people, follow me on social media by way of Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.